I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. It is Tuesday, June 4th, 2019. You are at the Mitchell County Board of Supervisors meeting at the Mitchell County Courthouse. We have an agenda in front of us.
So moved.
Stanley has made a motion.
Second.
Barb has made a motion. All in favor? Aye. Approve the minutes of the May 28th meeting. Hopefully we've all read it, and do we have any questions or changes? Or
I'll move to accept the minutes.
Barb has made a motion.
Second.
Stanley has seconded. Roll call. Barb.
Aye.
Stanley.
Aye.
Smollett. Aye. Last week's minutes have been approved. County attorney isn't here yet. We'll slide down to number 4. Consideration of the 28E agreement for the Iowa Precinct Atlas Consortium. And that had to do with the voting.
Yeah, it's for that precinct atlas to purchase the rights to that.
We discussed that last week, and I know you and I were both for it, but we didn't know how Stan felt, so
So
we
we'll
waited.
we'd wait for Stanley to be here, and
Thank you. And your recommendation is that we should,
I think so. It's time for us
We're,
to get in line with everyone
we're
else.
one of the few counties without it, so they've got the kinks out.
Yeah, and they've made some in the years, some real good improvements, I thought.
Yeah.
well, upon the recommendation of the auditor, I would move that we proceed.
Stanley's made a motion.
I'll second that.
Barb has made a motion. Roll call. Stanley.
Aye.
Barbara.
Aye.
Smollett. Aye. So this motion has been approved, and we'll slide up to County Attorney General discussion. Mark, I'll let you have the floor.
Good morning, County Attorney.
Good morning. About the only thing I have is Mark Ross had gone out to Kephardt's and took pictures. I don't know if you got copies of those.
Got
it. We all have.
I had sent an email to the Sheriff's Department to go out, I don't know if you got that, make sure to take a look at those bridges, because the code talks about bridges that can be locked shut. So if you've got the newer ones that are magnetic, those really don't lock. What, of course, they're concerned about is kids playing in and going inside, getting locked, and they can't get out and they die. So if they're just magnetic, they can, they're not against the law. They can be, you know, the old style with the handle. So I told them to go out and see if they determine which ones they were. Other than that, that's where we are right now.
Now, to me, that fence, I don't know if they have to be made out of a certain thing, but I would assume they have to at least be upright.
No,
It doesn't even have to be upright?
no.
What?
But doesn't it have to conceal what's behind it?
I'm gonna tell you about a bunch of different things, and we got into this a little bit last week when Betty was here. Back when the zoning ordinance was enacted, there were a bunch of what I consider to be junkyards in Mitchell County. And those were all what they considered to be non-conforming uses, which means they were legal at the time, but they became unlawful after the zoning ordinance was enacted. And they said, and I don't know if I have this exactly right, since it's a non-conforming use, you've got 5 years to get in compliance with the zoning ordinance, which said you've got to put up a fence around it. Okay?
But they gave you 5 years.
But they gave you 5 years, and if you didn't
They're
have it up
generous.
within 5 years, then you lost your non-conforming use. So a bunch of the people around the counties put up fences. I don't think, if I remember correctly, Mr. Kephardt put up a fence at all at that point in time. Then the county brought the action against him that said, okay, you're now a non-conforming use, junkyard, clean it up. at which time you said, okay, I'm gonna put up a fence. And the Board of Supervisors said, no, it's too late for you to put up a fence. It's non-conforming now, so you've gotta clean it up. And the county, were you around here then when we did that?
I don't, when do you think that was?
Were you the sheriff then or not?
No, that wasn't it.
That's been,
What?
what, 10, 15 years ago?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Ginger
it was-
Thompson was the, doing P and Z at that point, I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, so the county went in and cleaned it up. Actually, what happened is we got a scrapper to come in and clean it up, and I don't think it cost the county much of anything to clean it up. And that's where we are now. So, does the fence have to be upright? No, because the fence legally means nothing, because it can't be a junk. Now, is it a nuisance? Well, look in the code what a nuisance is, okay? A nuisance is something that's harmful. This is just ugly. But is it harmful to the public? Is it attracting rodents because the fence is not up? No. So, the fence in itself, for purposes of being a nuisance, is immaterial. Whether if it was straightly, completely up, covering everything, legally it wouldn't make any difference because he can't have a junkyard anyway. If the fence covers it up, it's still a junkyard, it's still a non-conforming use, if it's a junkyard, which I think it is.
So,
So what the heck do you do about
I
it?
guess we're kind,
Could
great.
I comment, Steve? I got Mark's email on that last week, so yesterday I went down to New Haven and Mr. Kephart was there. He let me come onto his property and check the refrigerators. In reviewing the code, I agree with Mark, unless they're the old style and they lock. He's not in violation, these are not, they're the magnetic ones. However, asked him to remove the doors off of one refrigerator and one deep freeze that isn't in the photo, and he did do that for me. One of the refrigerators that you see in the photo, the one closest to the home, is plugged in and being used. It's full of food. And so I asked him if he'd put a lock on it, not so much to keep the kids from getting trapped in it, but maybe keeping somebody from coming on there and taking what's in it. And he did that for us. And the fence has not been touched as of yet. He did say he would try and straighten it up. But the refrigerators are the magnetic ones. He did take the doors off the one and also off the deep freeze. So I don't think he's in violation for under 727.3 like Mark referenced.
Okay, well, I guess
Good to
then,
know.
I guess that's the end of proceeding with anything.
Well, at least on the refrigerators, the question is that does the county want to proceed and say it's a nuisance?
Can we?
I believe so, because we sent him a letter, and I probably told you this before, that I can never quite understand the law, which says, and this is the law, okay? The Board of Supervisors have made a determination that your property constitutes a nuisance. You know, you've got the right to a hearing within 30 days to determine if it is, in front of the Board of Supervisors, who've already made the determination that it's a nuisance. You know what I'm saying? So it doesn't really seem like you're getting a full and fair hearing, but that's what the code says. The code also says, once you send out that letter, you've got 30 days to request a hearing. If you don't request a hearing, then you're done. Then it is a nuisance, because the fact that they determined it, and the county can go in then and take whatever action they want to clean it up. So,
We
I
can
wanna
clean-
check to make sure on my dates on everything. I had that file with me.
We can clean what's not within the house and what's not within the shed.
You can clean up whatever you think constitutes a nuisance.
Okay.
That sounds like you could do the shed.
Oh. Comment. Supervisors? Public?
Welcome to suggestions.
We have a chance.
Well, Russell's gonna I mean, this is gonna continue to be ongoing with him
Yes, it is.
until the day he dies.
Yes, it
Is
is.
about what it's gonna amount to. And I don't know that we can come up with a solution
Well,
with him that would,
here's a possible solution, or at least a starting point. We send him a letter, tell him to be here, I hate to say a week from today because I don't get the letter out for a couple of days, but 2 weeks from today. And for him to propose a plan to clean the place up. And if he doesn't come up with a plan to clean it up, you know, then the county's going to go in and clean it up and they're going to assess his taxes against his property. That's a possibility.
Comments from the supervisors again?
I don't have any other good suggestion.
I mean, the problem is there is no good suggestion.
Right.
There's the least objectionable suggestion.
Yeah.
well, the other thing, you know, if they're off on the back roads and that, we basically, I hate to say it, but we've looked the other way on some other things.
Well,
I mean,
it's different. This is zoned residential. Once you get out in the country, it's zoned agricultural, completely different set of.
you know, if we could convince him to find a place, like you say, on the back roads, rural, whatever, he could be happy with his junk, we would be happy.
Well,
and-
then the neighbors would be happy.
Yeah, I mean, everybody would be happy, that's, maybe that's part of the discussion we could have with them in a couple of weeks. To clean this up and try to find a,
I'd like to find a compromise. I mean, because he really believes he's doing right.
Well, the last thing I want to do, and I'm sure it's the last thing you want to do, but Mr. Kephart seems to convince it's what we want to do. The county doesn't want to go in there and clean the place up. That's the last thing we want to do. We would much rather have him go in there and clean it up, so the neighbors stop complaining. I mean, this isn't being driven by me, this isn't being driven by you, it's being driven by the neighbors that are all complaining. So it'd be great if he'd go in there and clean it up.
Rita, you have a
I've
comment?
got a public comment. I would say Russell has come a long way with this, so I would, when you think about how confrontational he was at the beginning, perhaps what hasn't been tried is an individual visit from the county supervisor, just to say, hey, Russell, what would work for you? It is my understanding the neighbors would be willing to help with that cleanup. That's what I had heard from a neighbor. And perhaps a discussion, what will work for you, Russell, and just see if it's in a non-confrontational setting, and see if you can at least have some,
I would actually be
Resolution.
willing to do that. We have fairly good rapport.
That would be great, because Mr. Kephart is under the impression that I'm the one that's driving this, and the last thing, anytime I send him a letter or even try and talk to him, it's immediately this.
Okay, now, before I do talk to him though, because this has been ongoing for a long time, I don't know the details on the neighbors, so if, Mark, sometime you could,
Well, I don't,
who would have it in,
they talk to you,
The
right?
minutes?
Yeah, I get a lot of grief.
okay, if you could just tell me even later what all the complaints are exactly.
I'll talk to you later then.
Okay, just so we don't get accused of violating open meeting, you can disclose to her the complaints,
Okay,
but don't have any
Right,
discussion.
right.
No discussion.
No, that's all I
about
want
what
is just the
stuff.
details.
Yep.
yeah, okay.
That you can provide information, that's okay, discussion is no good.
No problem.
Okay. Sounds good. Well, I guess that's what we'll proceed as. We will try and get the supervisors together and go out and visit, catch Mr. Kephart wherever he could be.
We're all gonna do it? That might be a little intimidating. You think all of them, Rita?
I just think one person, if
I
it's a
think one person
non-confrontational
personally. But
situation.
All up to you guys, but I wouldn't have all three of us. I think that would be very intimidating to him. He would feel like that was confrontational.
The other thing I might suggest, if you think it's a matter of confrontation, perhaps let the sheriff know when you plan to do the visit, in case you feel like you need some backup, or, you know, if it gets out of hand. But other than that,
Well, I'm not afraid of Russell, so I'll go visit Russell by myself,
Well, I'm not afraid of him either.
so I can go visit with him. If that's all right with the other two supervisors.
Okay?
Now, if you wanna go, I'll let you
Well,
go.
obviously, it's not something that's gonna be comfortable, but I would have went with no problem, so whatever.
Okay, well, I'll catch up with him, and we'll go from there. Anyways, moving on.
I don't have anything else.
Okay, thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Taylor.
Consideration of county courthouse emergency action plan, and Barb, you were more into it at that meeting, so I'll let you discuss a little of that.
Well, we did go over the whole book, literally. Oh gosh, who all was at that meeting? I talked about it last week.
Shannon, Chris, myself,
Chris Olson,
Dave.
Casey, Dave Harto. And I had several suggestions, which I think most of them they used, or they explained to me why it wasn't in there, type of thing. And so I don't know if you guys have had a chance to look at it. Because it is updated.
I had the chance to look at it that day as we were during the meeting, so, but, have you got a chance to look at it, Stanley?
I have not looked at it yet.
So we'll probably wait till you get that chance, and then we'll run that again.
Okay,
So we'll put number 6 on hold,
5.
or number 5, excuse me, number 5 on hold. And we will move on to number 6.
A quick question. Casey, is there any problem with waiting another week?
No, I don't believe so. I think the intent was just to
Just to get it.
get it out,
Yeah.
out to everyone, so.
Yeah, and I did suggest that there was a hard copy for each office besides it's already on the computer.
And if anybody in them offices would have a concern or suggestion, now's the time to make that change, if there is one. So we will now move on to number 6. Consideration of St. Ansgar Community Chamber financial request. This is from Kathy Falk to the Board of Supervisors. The St. Ansgar Community Chamber would like to request $500 to be used for the Town and Country Day celebration that will be held June 15th. This event combines Herb Fest and Oatmeal Day. We will be holding a horticultural fair at this event showcasing the present and the past of our farming community. We will have the youth involved. The monies will be used for advertising and props needed for this event. Thank you for your consideration. Kathy Fall. So,
I have some questions, from the past. I know St. Ansgar has other days. Do they ask for money for all of those too?
No.
This
no,
is only one?
This would be probably it. Is there any comments from the public? Any other comments from supervisors?
Again, we have our hotel motel tax, of which 50% is supposed to go to tourism, which this would be tourism advertising for trying to get people into the event.
Yep. And then how do you access that hotel tax? I mean, as far as. you
It's just
use it,
something
You just.
we get a
ask.
fund, yeah, the treasurer receives that through the state
Okay.
quarterly,
Okay.
so
I
is
didn't
it
know that.
considered a
I would move to approve.
Stanley has made a motion to approve.
I'll second it. I'm actually fine with it as a public purpose.
Barb has seconded it. Roll call, Stanley,
Aye.
Barb,
Aye.
Smolik, aye. We will move on to consideration of commercial construction program phase 2. And Barb, you're on economic development, so any info that you would want?
Tony's here.
I would have Tony.
Tony is here, that's good. Tony.
Thank you. We have gone through the first round of the applications that we received for the incentive plan and went through each one, and they all met the criteria, and so each one was approved. There was a mixture of both residential and commercial in there, and so it fit with the parameters that had been set. So.
And there was a mixture of price ranges too, and it was nice to see a couple of them under 200,000.
Yeah, so it was a pretty good mix this time, weighted differently than the last round, definitely. So I think it fit with all of the discussions that have been had about how we want to go forward with the program. So, it was recommended to approve.
Well, and a year ago, we approved a commercial venture in McIntyre. That has now been built, and actually, my understanding is that's really going to be an asset for that little community. And it's also making the trail that goes from the state line all the way to Elma. Bicyclists now have a destination, and on the weekends that, because it is there, so again, it's generating revenue for the city of McIntyre and the county, and it is, like you say, a destination, and I think these things are doing what it's supposed to be doing.
It's always nice to hear positive outcomes of our efforts.
When there was one anecdotal evidence that was doing what we had hoped. One of the spec homes that was recently purchased was purchased by a local older couple, and which opened up an older home in town for someone to buy, which has already been purchased, in my understanding. So that domino effect has taken place in one of the recent purchases. So it's done what we had hoped for,
Yeah,
at least in
exactly.
one instance. So.
Okay. Is there any other comments from the public on this? If not, do we have any motions to approve?
Bird's turn.
Yeah, well, I so moved to approve what's going on with our phase 2.
Barb has made a motion,
Second.
Stanley has seconded. Roll call, Barb,
Aye.
Stanley,
Aye.
Smolik, nay. It has passed. So,
Anything else?
I think, unless you have anything else to add, Tony, you're there in the hot seat.
No, nothing more to add, just happy to have the program going forward.
Okey dokey, thank you, Tony. And we will move on with Sheriff Department update. So, Greg?
Yeah, just on the heels of the Kephart case, you've probably seen in the newspaper the 4 that we arrested on Memorial Day. We had arrested one prior, but he went federal, so he's sitting down in Cedar Rapids. So there's 5 that we took into custody in the last 10 days or 2 weeks on drug charges, and we're still looking. Well, and correct that, 6 actually, 1 did self-surrender, so we're still looking for 2 more. So there'll be a total of 8 that the guys have made nice cases on, and we'll put in a system and see what happens to them.
So are they in jail now? Okay,
Some
they're
of
able to
them-
get out like on a bond or something?
There's always a bond that accompanies any charge. Some of them posted bond, some of them were in just overnight, and magistrate deems them not a flight risk. And so he just releases them. Essentially, a promise to appear, their signature to appear in court later. There is one that is still in custody, unable to post the bond, and and with his criminal history, the magistrate thought he probably better stay, so anyway, we're holding one on that. I got a call this week that the Tahoe that we purchased for the sheriff's office is available, so we're probably gonna pick that up, although we won't pay for anything till the new budget year, July 1st. Seems like when Carl Chevrolet gets them in, they want them off their lot, and the event the storm rolls through.
I suppose.
So anyway, Dennis called and we'll run down and grab that. It won't be out on the street for maybe a month or 6 weeks. We have to coordinate getting it updated for Kurt out here, so. But anyway, then we'll tear down the other one and whatever you folks want to do with that one. There's a use for it in the county, or if you want to, sell it, whatever, I'll let you know when that one's available. You make something probably.
I don't think Rich is interested in it.
Not for secondary roads so much. I know
Well,
that-
we pick up next year, nice one actually.
Well, and I've told Worth County this, but my Escape's getting 127,000 miles on it. By the time something else comes up, it'll have high miles on it, and I just told them I might even talk to the sheriffs in each county if they've got to pick up a cell and drive one of their old ones, because that's just as good. You haven't worn them out yet.
No.
By the time I get done with it, it'll probably be wore out while I was beating around you do, so.
Yeah, and you look at Dave's plow truck, and it's a plow truck, it's starting to fall apart too, so it's something we'll have to look at maybe down the road.
That's true. I forgot about Dave's plow truck.
So anyway, I'll let you know when the top becomes available next year, we'll be back with the pickup. So, we're gonna use that in a year from now. That one will be relatively low miles. We rotate them, so this vehicle that we're buying now will be with us for 6 years. And then each year we buy a new vehicle so that our fleet stays somewhat reliable. And it's a good program because we have very low maintenance costs. The first 3 years are covered in a warranty, so then essentially there's 3 years that we pay the bills on any type of maintenance. Typically it's brakes, tires, and oil change. So it's worked out well.
It would be available to bring it back if you want a driver.
Keep in mind, I gotta get with Dennis down there and see when he's available. He needs to be there so we can sign some papers, and so we don't have a date certain yet, but I'll let you know. We need your help. I appreciate it.
That's nice that they allow us to take that vehicle
Yeah.
home
Yeah.
a month early without payment.
Yep. Well, we have a pretty good working relationship with him down there, and I've stopped in and talked with him. So he knows me, we know each other, and he knows the money's good, so he doesn't have a problem with that. And I guess we're sitting on 3 this morning. Court service day, we may get another 1 or 2, a couple of people that are scheduled, there are warrants for, so if they show up, we'll take them into custody. Otherwise, unless you've got complaints or compliments, I'm done.
I've heard 2 comments on your sign.
Good or bad?
Well, one person from Stacyville wondered why they were left out. They would like one.
They would, well,
The one in St. Ansgar?
we can maybe take care of it.
And
That's good. I actually posted it on my Facebook page.
And it's not an original idea. I seen that in the Southern United States, the sheriff had it. Maybe Stan saw the same sheriff down there. But it is, kind of.
Is everybody aware of this sign in St. Ansgar? You wanna tell them what it says?
Well, yeah, it's got the Mitchell County Sheriff's Office, the state of Iowa badge, and it says, "Attention drug dealers, turn in your competition." And then our
Isn't
flag.
that
That is wonderful.
great? I love
So, yeah, it's kind of a, yeah.
Is that something Sheriff Arpaio and?
No, it wasn't. He's got a lot of unique things, but that wasn't anything that he had.
Okay.
Yeah,
It
this
just
was the
sounded-
South Carolina sheriff that I saw had it.
Oh.
Yeah. So anyway,
I heard a negative comment just because people don't want to think that there's a drug problem, and the
Oh,
individual I told said, I
hello.
said, the sheriff,
Yeah,
the
ding, ding,
sheriff
ding.
knows more about the drug
Get
problem than
real.
anybody else does, so.
yeah, my
I said-
position's zero tolerance, whatever. If they go to treatment, great. If they don't, what's gonna happen is they're gonna get arrested, or we want you to move. Those are
Right.
your 3 options.
I tried to convince him it's a tool, you read the sign and it's a little bit of humor, but a little bit of, hey,
Reality.
Yeah, we can't bury our head in the sand. There's plenty to do on that front, so.
So they can refuse treatment?
Yeah, they would have to voluntarily go, that's my point. If you got a drug problem, go
Yeah.
now before the cops
That's true,
bang on your
yeah.
door. Typically, people don't, Barb. What happens, if you look at the stats, 80 to 90% of people are in treatment because they've had law enforcement contact in their court order.
And they were forced.
Yes. And so I haven't looked at this side of it. Probably 80 to 90% are failures because they don't want to be there. So until they reach that point in their own life that they want to go to treatment on their own, it's really a tough sell. But we get them there anyway, as part of their sentence typically.
Good.
So,
That's what you want.
yeah, that's right.
Rehabilitation.
Yep, go to treatment, move or get arrested, I guess, that's the options, so.
You have another one you want to put up in Cecil, or do you know where you want to put them in?
Well, it was wait for construction then on Lancer.
Okay, what about, how many signs do you have?
I have 3, I can
Okay,
get more.
I just want to know if you want to put them somewhere else,
Yeah,
you know?
I'll get with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, anyway, that's all I
Thank you.
have. this
Thank
morning.
you, Greg,
So,
I believe.
okay, have a good day.
You too. Hopefully you'll have a quiet week.
Thanks.
Richard,
Good morning.
let you have the floor.
Just an update on P38, main line was completed last Friday for the paving, so the pavement's complete with the machine anyway. They've got handwork they're doing at the railroad crossing there in town. And then we'll be doing some miscellaneous driveways that were paved prior to construction. We're gonna reestablish the pavement from what we had modified in the paving project itself. They're doing some shouldering right now. They did one, it's probably about 70% complete on the shouldering, and when I looked at the shouldering that was out there, I modified a little bit and wanted a little bit wider shoulder. What was getting put out there, and with the variation in the pavement thickness and everything else, I didn't like how it had a secondary drop off, so we widened the shoulder. We're gonna have an overrun on rock for shoulders, but when it's done, it'll be what we want it to be. And then we did add some asphalt shouldering. We didn't have it all in there, but coming down the hill toward the bridge from the north, we have a scour problem there, and we were gonna do asphalt millings, and then we just decided that asphalt's gonna be more permanent fix there, so we're not scouring out the edge of the pavement and always having to come back and fix it. So we're adding a little bit more costs to paving that, but I think in the long run will save us some efforts and trying to work under traffic to modify anything later on, so. That's that.
So when do you think you'll have it open? I mean, you know,
Well, yeah, officially, I know the locals that live on the road have access to it. I'd still encourage people to stay off of it because we've had semi-drivers on it here just yesterday, blaring down there with all the other construction traffic, and their excuses, this is where the GPS told me to go. Forget about the big orange signs that say road closed, but keep driving, so, I don't understand that, but at any rate, I encourage it. It'll probably be, I know that the asphalt people are on call for this week. I'm gonna assume most of the handwork should be done by the end of the week. They still have painting to do yet, so 2 or 3 weeks at the most, I would hope. But, the locals have access to their property, so it's an easier thing for them to get around now.
so that little piece by the railroad tracks, that should be done here in about 3 days?
They did, I'm trying to think if they actually maybe have that done already. They were working on it yesterday along with, they were doing removals yesterday and working on driveways, so, I guess I didn't stop right there and actually see what they had going on, but I would guess the next day or two that the railroad should be done. And the railroad issue was more of a paperwork problem where the paperwork was sent to an office that we or the contractor didn't know had been shut down by the railroad. So it was sitting on a desk and then they expedited it once they found out there was an issue, so. The railroad jumped right on top of it.
Okay, so it wasn't a case of that you were still waiting for that flag then?
We were waiting for the flagger, but the problem was the paperwork was in the wrong place, so they didn't know about it.
It wasn't that the railroad was doing it.
They weren't doing anything on purpose, they were just didn't know the paperwork was in the wrong, well, they had shut an office down, like I said. They didn't realize the paperwork was sent there, so. And then also, we're gonna have a pre-construction meeting, Thursday for Stacyville Box Culvert. We've been pushing it, we tried once and then pushed it back, the contractor was busy, so we've got those people notified, in the area of the city for the construction there, so, the pre-construction meeting, so. And then we're still hauling rock like crazy, trying to catch up to the frost boil issue and blading when we can. Yeah, the phone's kinda quiet now since anything that's heat is hard, you know, still needs shaping. Any rain we get is gonna hold water, so. We're just gonna be chasing our tail, I think, all summer on this. It's gonna take a long time to get done. But we're doing what we can with the crew we have.
What do we have scheduled for paving next year?
I didn't look at the plan. We'll have, I think is it 370th from Foothill to Balsam? And then the 1 mile stretch from Balsam to the county line, and then from the county line, I'm working on Worth County to tie that in. That'll be we're trying it's called there's a term for this asphalt though, it's a mill, do a 1 or 1.5 inch mill with a highly polymerized asphalt surface, try to do that on these roads that aren't completely destroyed yet, where we have a little bit of structure underneath them. It's not, I want to say super paved, but it's not that. It's a highly polymerized asphalt. It's been tried in Saragordo County. I know another couple other counties are going to do it this year also. So
The reason I ask again, I thought those construction signs that we had out, you know, saying construction for I thought those were effective.
they are,
And so I'd like to be able
When
to,
we-
whatever we
yeah.
have
well, we
coming
have,
up
you know, in an asphalt project, we'll put them up anyway. Just let people know what we've got going on. Yeah, we'll do that. I think it's a nice tool to put out there for the public.
You said where again, from Foothill to?
Is it from Foothill to Balsam? You got that blacktop. Well, everybody calls it the road to nowhere. That one, and
Okay.
then up that mile across to Worth County to Grafton, and I'm gonna pick it up from Worth County, 380, sorry. I'll pick it up from there to Grafton and Worth County. And I'm working on I guess a while back I had sent a letter to the Department of Finance, the DOT, to get some farm market funds transferred from Worth County to Mitchell County, compensate for Xenia Avenue. I have to talk to you, Lowell. I'm trying to find the 2080 agreement between the counties, and I can't find it in my office, because the Department of Finance wants that, or the Finance Department at the DOT wants that to verify that we're doing it legitimately. I told them I'm the county engineer for both, that's what I want to do, so, but they wanted agreement, yeah. I looked in the files for 2080 agreements, all I can find are the city ones and not county ones.
Well, do we have any other comments for Rich?
All right, we'll check out a few things this morning that people called on and get back to business.
We'll look and see.
Yeah, if you would, please. It'll be a general 2080 agreement between the two counties, just the general one. I would specify that when there's, I think a lot of them were written such that if there's anything over $10,000 a mile, both counties share in the cost 50-50. If it's smaller maintenance stuff, then they don't. Sometimes it's easier if we just did everything 50-50.
Thank you, Rich.
You're welcome. Have a good week.
Hopefully your phone is quieter now.
Well,
Hopefully mine will be quieter.
It's drier now, but when it rains and it gets sloppy, then people call again. I know that there's a lot to pick up yet. There's a lot of rutted gravels out there, but they're passable, so.
Like I mentioned earlier, our complaint there on the east side.
I drove it that week too, and it was soft in spots, but you know, we've got so much rock in there, and we put it on there and then it gets pounded in and it disappears, and you gotta do it all over again.
Well, the thing of it is we call up and complain, and then what are you gonna do about it? Well,
I've had,
he's the person that lives on the road.
and I've had people call too and say, what's your plan? Well, my plan is to wait for it to dry out so we can actually get on it. And then, what do you wanna do from there? Well, I don't know. I mean, if you wanna reconstruct gravel roads, we'll just forget about paving hard surface, because it's gonna take all that money to fix 500 miles of gravel.
Well, and then again, I stress to this person that with 500 plus gravel miles in the county, and we've just spent a week on yours, everybody else was left out.
Well,
And he's still complaining.
and how do you solve the frost bow problem? We can go out and start drilling holes everywhere, but that takes time and it takes money, and I don't know, I don't like making excuses, but we don't have a lot of time, I guess it's easier for us to deal with the problem as it shows up, which isn't always the right answer. We know where a lot of these are, yeah, we could start drilling holes, but it just never seems that we ever have the time to do it. I guess we can hire people to do it,
I was gonna say manpower.
yeah. I mean, we have to get a drill rig if we're gonna drill the holes, or we can go hire a tiler, but sometimes it doesn't even work. I mean, we can put tile in a road, it's the clay soils, you gotta drain, clay soils don't drain very well. You know, they kinda hold the moisture in and don't let water through.
The heavy blue won't let her drain.
So sometimes tiles for naught, sometimes it works. And sometimes after 10 years, it doesn't work again because it's silted in or collapsed or whatever. So
Well,
it's a never-ending battle, and it's throughout the Midwest, I can tell you that. In fact, I had a compliment yesterday. Well, I don't know if it's a compliment so much as a county compliment in the fact that I got a brother-in-law that works for Hardin County in the motor grader. And he got his butt chewed because they don't have rock on their roads, and the person that was chewing said, well, I got relatives in Mitchell County and they got rock on their roads, and I'm like, send her up here and tell everybody else. Nobody wants to believe it, so.
thank you, Rich.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
We will go to number 10, consideration of abatement order, and you have that in front of you. And this has to do with a trailer house that was moved out of the county in August of 2017. So it really shouldn't have tax dollars coming from them. Any comments?
So moved to approve.
Stanley has made a motion to approve this abatement order.
One second.
Barb has seconded it. A roll call, Stanley,
Aye.
Barb,
Aye.
Smolik, aye. So this person's abatement taxes are abated. We'll slide down to number 11, consideration fireworks permit. And this is for Derek and Jessica Balsley's pasture, and Stanley did bring up that it doesn't really legally give a description of where that pasture would be. We'll,
I went over and had Barb look up where these people live and this and that. In any event, both of these are outside of the incorporated town, so it is our duty to either yes or no.
okay.
Do we wanna try to get this form changed so that there's another line in there saying where the actual address is of this type of thing?
There is a line
Where's that?
right under 4.
Well, it just says Mitchell, Iowa, though, it doesn't give,
Well, it says request date and location, it should have.
I guess they should have, yeah, all right.
Well,
Anyways,
maybe just add the word physical location for where there should, I mean,
a legal,
like you
a
said-
legal description of the
yeah, or whatever,
property.
because I mean, not just Mitchell, Iowa does not,
But anyways, in the event, in the
or when they
future,
bring them to you,
we could,
maybe you can look them over and it does need a street address or whatever.
the closest, would that work, the closest street address?
Yeah, they should have had something.
A little more detail.
Because the other one does have Ellicott Street.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, in the event, I think this is still passable.
You've got 2 of them, Steve.
Oh, there's another one underneath.
Yeah.
Legal name Jeremy Mostek. This is on 300 South Ellicott Street in Mitchell. I didn't realize there was 2 of them. Anyways, do we have to do them separately?
No.
Together.
Together. So,
Also move to accept both of these.
Second.
fireworks.
Stanley is seconded. Do we have to have a roll call, or can we say all in
Roll
favor?
call.
Roll call. Barb,
Aye.
Stanley,
Aye.
Smolik, aye. So we've made motions. Both permits have been approved. Advance program update.
Tony was gonna do that.
will get it.
Casey will get him.
I was kinda,
I know.
didn't know what it meant.
I know, I did
was
think a
kinda-
second, I do know what it is now, that would be the, Jennifer. Isn't that
Oh, okay.
Jennifer?
Mm-hmm.
Well, as long as Tony's not here, we could slide down to doing,
Maybe.
would that be good, Lowell? Sure. Meetings attended, Barb, would you have?
Sure, mine won't take that long. Substance abuse, we discussed our finances, including brainstorming where to get money from for our coalition, as one of the grants that we normally receive is no longer being offered. We made plans for writing 8 articles for the county newspapers after we get the newspapers' permissions, and so far we have the Press News granting that. I've written 1 article, I don't know if they'll use it for sure, but it was on the differences of marijuana effects on the teen brain. And then, let's see, I had a short meeting with Chuck Goodman of Heartland Insurance explaining more things that they could do for us, such as seminars, which I'm working on preparing a list of suggestions for them. And I met with Chris Olson, and we mentioned this earlier, Dave Hardo, Shannon Paulus, Steve, you attended too, and Casey, and gave my suggestions for updating our emergency planning guides. And I mentioned earlier too that I want to have each department have an actual written copy in case the computers would be down as far as an emergency came up.
Okay. Stanley, do you have anything that you would like to bring up?
Yeah, the Port Authority, we met here last, Thursday, and, Midstream Methanol did pay the $1,000, to renew their option to possibly buy the land there north of, Manly. And, next year, that, it'll be a $10,000 payment, if they decide to renew it. And if they pay the $10,000, we really feel they're going ahead with the project. So in the meantime, we're going to, there's 3 of us that are going to be in contact with Midstream Methanol to try to determine what direction they're leaning in that, and then what options we would have. And also, it took quite a while, but our treasurer did get a hold of the state of Iowa and finally got the right forms in that we can get reimbursed for our expenses since last July 1st, you know, with that $250,000 grant. And so we're still waiting on a couple of invoices that we have to have more complete information to go to the state, and then we should be getting a check here in the next month or 2 from the state going to the Port Authority, then we'll come back to Mitchell County to pay for.
And that ended up to be $150,000, did you say? Or
Didn't they split it?
Our,
for that grant?
it seems like, he didn't give exact numbers. It seems to me that there was about $160,000 worth of bills. And so our share of reimbursement would be around $80,000. We don't really have, we have less, well, I don't want to, to me, it seems like we have around $50,000-$60,000 is all this is going to cost us when it's all said and done, not the $400,000 or that we
Right, we don't
authorized. I
have,
mean,
yeah.
it was a small portion of that it actually costs the county in order to understand where we're at and what's possible and so on and so forth. So Barb has also explained that because we have not used most of that authorized TIF money, it possibly could be utilized here with our other projects, and she was going to look into that. You know, that we wouldn't have to Well, but she was gonna look into it.
Okay, you'll have to let us know how that comes out.
And we can have Barb, explain that next week, I mean,
Yeah,
but next week is our last week. Also, south of the Dino Quarry, couple of people felt that, there was a water issue, with drainage again, that, people above stream have added, more water coming down with additional tile and so on and so forth, and the county property that, Adam controls there, they felt was a little bit too narrow, to take some of the water, so it's backing up on, possibly causing flooding in their basements and that. And so, I've talked to Adam, I talked to Richie, and when it's fit, we're gonna take the backhoe, the big hole, and widen that creek just a little bit on the one end. And we feel that that'll eliminate the, ponding. Yeah, the ponding. So that was, basically, my two meetings. On this coming Friday, there's going to be a party for Barb Baldwin here at 2 o'clock. Jeff Heil said he would be here to answer any questions and that again that anybody has on tax increment financing. So if there's things that you really feel that you're not 100% comfortable with, that you'd like a little better understanding of it and so on, come Friday at 2 o'clock, Jeff will be here. He'll also be here next Tuesday for our hearings. But, so that we don't take up a lot of time at the hearings, but like I say, he will be here to answer questions if you have any.
it seems like I have it pretty good in my mind, but I have a hard time explaining it in a nutshell.
Well, it's not easy.
When people ask.
It's not easy.
Because, you know, they want a
It's,
brief answer and you're like, yeah.
But it's basically, utilizing the new increment that the county gets to utilize, and if we don't, take advantage of it, basically, if there's any kind of, new projects in that, we would have to pay for ourselves as opposed to having, the new increment pay for it. And so, it's really been a godsend to us and at that time, we can ask, Jeff too, you know, how much, possible additional revenues that, we would have available to us in the next, how many, 15, 20 years, so on and so forth. So, this would be a good time to get some of that, information.
Okay, that's
That's
it
it.
then, Stanley.
Yep.
Tony, I will let you have the floor for this, the advanced program update.
I'm sorry, I didn't miss that. Currently, a few of the other jurisdictions in the area have expressed more support for the program. The corridor, particularly Mason City and Clear Lake, has upped their amount that they're willing to go to. And basically, it's based on population. So they have basically tripled their commitment to what the average was going to be, and that brings everybody else's down. A couple of the other counties have already verbally expressed some support. There are some that are looking for some other opportunities for other funding, possibly some grants that they're looking at too. They've looked at a Google grant. There's no timeline on it, unfortunately. Don't know how quickly they'll get a response on it. So it's a little bit up in the air. We're trying to get an opportunity to get all of the different bodies together to negotiate it down to a hard level, so we can then somehow put together a coalition group. It looks to be that it would be the North Iowa Economic Development Association that we're a part of. It would probably be the entity that would be the funding source, and it all would funnel through them. We are already a part of that and pay some into it, and so there's a possibility that that association might also kick in a certain amount to help pay for it. So
Well, who actually looks up this grant then, the Google grant? Who actually works on it?
our association.
The
yeah.
association?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know if you were responsible at all for having to do
Not individually, no. It's by the association. And that's already
Okay.
been done, and we're waiting to see what would come. Currently, under the current form we're looking at, that our portion of the bill would be $75,000. And that's with the corridor stepping up considerably. I don't want to share their amount, and I'm not sure if they're yet, but it brought our cost down considerably. We have had some very good anecdotal occurrences with the program of some of the employers that are using it currently, and have had very, very good luck. I wouldn't call it luck, because Jennifer worked really hard at getting good quality
Yeah.
employees. I think that's the one thing that is kind of missing in other programs with other bigger corporate entities that are doing it, is they kind of lack that hands-on approach. Jennifer, of course, you all know her. She has hired an individual down in Puerto Rico to be the on-the-ground person, and is already working down there.
Is he? Okay.
Yeah, and I have the opportunity, hopefully next week, to get to meet this person, meet with some other employers and stuff. So she is moving forward, and is having some good luck. She is invested and gambled a little bit on hiring this individual, because this is what she had approached the counties with, was to be able to allow her to do that. She stepped out, and she's already done that, and committed some of her resources with the hopes of something bigger coming down the pike.
Which it should be her responsibility, it's her business.
Right, and that's why I just wanted you to know, she has put forth some of her own
Which is great, and I do think
resources.
she puts that personal effort into
Yes.
making sure it's the right fit.
Yeah, and I do know that she is working very, very hard to try to focus on bilingual people as well. It's less of a transition when they come, and it works out.
Puerto
better for
Rico
everybody.
though, just from, we had a foreign student from there once, and I think pretty much everybody there speaks English.
And
Is the
so
impression I
bilingual
got.
English, I think, is probably the thing. I think she's probably trying to get people that are fairly fluent. Yeah, I'm sure they probably speak more English than we speak Spanish.
Oh, yes.
Even though I had 2 years of Spanish in high school myself, and I struggled
Yeah.
with hardly anything. So it's going well. And like I said, we're still hoping to get some outside support. And one thing we had talked about was trying to be fair about how the cost was divvied up, and population was the easiest way to go with.
I would think so.
And thus far, that has been accepted by the parties that have voiced their support. They're willing to go in at the population level.
Yeah, I don't know how else you could do that.
Not either, but thus far, and I think everyone is actually for it, it's just everyone trying to come up with a way that they can find the funding to cover it. So thus far, everyone has been very positive on supporting the program, it's just finding the funding.
Okay.
Well, this has not been listed as an action item today, but I would suggest that we list it as an action item next week for $7,500.
Okay, and the only reason I was hesitant to that, just make sure that was the hard number that came down.
Yeah, maybe we should let us know when you have those
Right.
more hard numbers,
Communication
and
comes down.
also,
Right, if there's
if that grant
one-
comes through,
Right,
that could lessen it.
or if there's one body that came in and said they couldn't do it, it might raise our level just a
Yeah.
little bit.
Well, but at some point in time, we've got to make a commitment so that the others make it,
Yeah, and that's why I think it's really gonna be necessary to get everybody in one place at one time to do it. But I see where you're coming from, and maybe by next week I'll have more numbers, so I mean, we can put it on the agenda as an action item for that level and just see where we're at. Cause we want
What is
to,
this,
we wanna be able to move as quickly as we can.
If you know that it might be another week, why don't you just let him know to take it off.
Sure, if we have nothing new to add on the next time, I'll get with Lowell.
Yeah, I think if you were gonna do it, you'd wanna get going.
Oh, yeah, I mean, like I said, she's having some success, and I think she placed an ad on Facebook down there, and they had to remove it because they had so much response that just the two of them were having difficulty just manually going through the applications to try to screen everyone and, you know, assess everyone and make sure that they were what they said they were, and, you know, all of that. So she's finding the bodies that are interested, and now she's in the process of screening to make sure.
Is she having any luck with the actual businesses?
Yes, she's had some more input from the businesses of what they're looking for. I don't think she's picked up any new clients, but she's picking up more requests from the ones that she's already been working with. So, there again, I think most of her time recently has been spent on actually screening employees, candidates. So she really hasn't had a whole lot of time to be able to reach out to businesses. You know, one person can only do so much. But that's been her recent workload has been on that side. I'm pretty confident.
Okay, is there any other comments or questions for Tony? If not, we'll proceed on. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
I think I'm the next one on the hot seat on these meetings attended. I went to Upper Wapsipinicon Watershed meeting last Tuesday, and they discussed the bylaws regarding officers, and then we had an election of officers, and they elected the president and the vice president and 4 board members. I didn't say their names, but I didn't know any of them, and I don't remember their names. They had an update from Antonio Arianas. Tony is a very good speaker, and he talked about our extreme weather from 2018 to June of 2018 to April of 2019, and we are 50 to 75% above average precipitation for this area in the last year, and we are 95% above saturation of groundwater, and we had the snowiest snowfall last winter from 1948 to 2012. Last winter was our snowiest. March 11th, we had over 12 inches of liquid water on the surface of the ground. That's with the snow and the rain we got that mixed in with the snow.
Wow.
And unfortunately, on March 13th and 14th, we received 3.5 more inches of snow, rain on top of that snow. That left Missouri with 180,000 acres flooded, and broke the Mississippi River record. It broke the record that goes clear back to 1850. And how Antonio comes up with this, I don't know, but he's a very sharp person. And we had a watershed planning update with Ross Evelsizer. A little more boring, so I'll just leave it at that. We had an update on the IWA funded projects with Angie All, and she says that we're halfway through the grants, doing 90% of the cost sharing, and they are working on 5 projects. And on future projects, they're only going to open them up for large contractors, because the small contractors can't do what they have to do. Then Angie and Ashley Sherritts had a discussion on water monitoring, which they do on the Wapsie, different spots along the way. Other than that meeting ended. We had the Mitchell County Commission meeting on May 29th, and it was called to order. Let's see, I'm not doing this right, because it was called to order by me.
It was the EMA's public hearing.
Pardon?
It was EMA's public hearing to amend the budget.
Yes. Not looking at the right thing here. here. Anyways, I was the one that brought it to, started the meeting. We passed the previous agenda, or we passed the agenda in the minutes of the last meeting, and we discussed the budget amendment, which we're adding $10,000, I believe. Never could figure out how we put it in there, but we budgeted in $10,000 more to finish out this year, and it was passed. And they also introduced new member Larry Mork from the city of Osage, and he was going to take over Kurt Elliott's place. And it was unanimous that he was added to our lineup there. And we had a special thanks to Chris Olson and the sheriff for the handling of the winter storm event and sheltering the standard travelers. So we also accepted the letter of resignation of Ray Huftelen effective July 1st. So anyways, Ray will be over here. And with everything finished, the meeting was adjourned. And I had a meeting with Valent. They discussed the fact that their digester is working perfect, and it will work perfect as long as they're not pumping out sludge, changing the dynamics. So as long as that's working right, there's no smell. The scrubber is being sent, put all together. The slab has been poured. The electrical is in. There's a little work to be done on the roof so they can set that machine in. They're expecting it late June. They might have it in place. They are also discussing, talking about putting new sensors in the sludge tank so that there'll be no more overfilling. And the tanks should be empty soon. So that part, they're going to have the tanks empty, so they'll have a clean slate. The scrubber should be in, should be working. Cross fingers, tail end of the June. Don't know if that's going to figure or finish the end of the odor, if that's going to resolve things, but they're trying. Things are going. Anyways, that meeting was over. My meetings are done here. We'll turn and go to manure management plan updates. Lowell?
Incorporated, 1134 420th Street, St. Ansgar, and Henry Unruh, 2633 450th Street, Stacyville. That is it.
That is it. And we're now down to public comments. Rita, you're here.
Yeah, my public comment is just an update on the redistricting committee that, it is moving forward, but of course we had to take a break with the weather and the farming, and so I just want to make sure we can pick up again and meet again and keep rolling.
Okay. Crystal, got any comments?
No.
Nothing to add?
I'm
I
glad
do
Chris was
have
here.
I mean,
Stanley?
there was a tornado down at the fairgrounds in Floyd County,
Yes.
and I would suggest that we make a suggestion to the fair board here that maybe they could offer our grounds this year if that would work out. If they needed a place for the Floyd County Fair to actually the livestock.
How much damage did they have? All I remember seeing is a picture of the block building.
My understanding, 6 or 7 buildings were.
But just the one was completely knocked down.
But, I mean, I have no idea what their intentions are in that, but that would be a good
Who's
PR.
ahead of the fair board now? Anybody know?
I don't remember.
I'm not
But
sure
the-
who is now.
Jim Roll, ain't he? It's Jim.
He's one.
I think
Audrey
Jim.
Barker, he's a
Stricker.
contact.
Audrey's the
Audrey.
secretary.
Mike
You know, but
Stricker.
that might be a good PR thing, and they could make a little money here with the beer sales and that.
Well, do you feel comfortable suggesting it to him?
Well, I would suggest that Lowell could just contact Audrey or one of those and I mean, we can't force anything,
Oh, no, of
so
course
so on,
not.
but I mean, we could make that suggestion. We could make that suggestion that,
Won't you, you're on that board, won't you be having a meeting here shortly?
they have not sent out an agenda yet.
I would think that'd be coming up
I
pretty
was just
quick.
curious, maybe
But I
you
mean,
could, maybe you could get in touch with Audrey and
Yeah, since you're on that board.
if that's all right.
Well, I can, or otherwise, well,
I'll let you two decide this out. Maybe,
I say just make that suggestion. I mean, if they can't or they don't want it or whatever, but I mean,
Correct.
that could be a good PR
give,
thing
allow
for
them
us.
the opportunity, if they need a fairgrounds, that they could utilize our fairgrounds, I think. Is that something that we have to have a vote on?
No. Like I said, it has nothing to do with us really, the fair board.
Okay. So, we will just give our graces for that, and so noted, and.
I actually sent them a suggestion already too on their, just to try to get more people in their event center, because that's really down compared to what it used to be. And I suggested that they just give them some freebie, even on their Facebook, some freebie advertising of listing exactly who all's gonna be in it.
You're
and then-
referring to our fair board.
Yes, and
Here. Yeah.
telling them that,
The issue is they have required anybody that was in there to have insurance.
is that the,
And
that's the
And
concern.
there you got $190 cost to an exhibitor to buy special insurance for those days.
Okay, like the Democrats and Republicans, I've never heard them say that.
We do.
Huh,
Republicans have been paying it the last few years.
I didn't realize
And
that.
we decided not to be there this year
Yeah,
in that capacity. We're gonna do something else with the fair, but,
Huh.
and it's so we'll lack a few people coming in there and
yeah, I wasn't aware of that.
That legal liability of that electrical cord going across the floor with a tape on it. Somebody stumbles over it.
well, we don't even have an electrical cord.
I know, but I'm
I
just
would
giving
think
that
they
as
would
an
have
example.
insurance on
That's what
their
I
whole
would
thing.
think. But it's gotten to be that way, so it kind of ruins,
Well, that's, would explain why it's
Participation.
down so much.
Yeah.
It's too bad, it's such a nice building for that.
we've had it for a few years already.
Yeah, and it's like the perfect, air conditioned and
Much better than it used to be.
lots of room and,
In that blue building.
that's too bad.
Does anybody else have any public comments, or is there any public comments? If not, Charlie says it's it. Thank you, everybody. Meeting is over.